Welcome to episode 2 of ROL Radio. On today's show, we are lucky enough to have with us a 5th degree black belt under Vinicius Dragalino Magalese and owner and instructor at Legacy BJJ in Burbank, California, Alberto Crane. Alberto is a Pan American silver medalist, world bronze medalist, Pan American bronze medalist, Brazilian national bronze medalist, TACFIT team leader, and professional MMA fighter and King of the Cage title holder. So let's dive right in with the truly inspirational Alberto Crane.
Welcome to ROL Radio.
All right, we are live. Gary, how are you?
Sir, I'm great, sir. How are you?
This is a treat. We have Alberto Crane in the house. So Alberto, good to see you. Good to hear from you. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me. Great to be here.
Unique times in our lives. How things are going. Before we get into the cool stuff, how are you doing? How is your academy doing? How is your family doing? How are things going in California?
You know, I think we're all kind of in a similar situation. We've been closed, right, since middle of March. We closed before we had to, and doing Zoom classes and trying to support our community as best as we can, considering. And my family's good, you know, like they're out of school. We have 3 kids, so they're at home. They're at home doing Zoom classes as well. I don't know how that's really how good that is, you know, but it is what it is. And we probably won't have them go back to school if they're going to have to wear masks and be, you know, who knows, be sprayed down with chemicals. And I don't know, I don't know what's true, you know, but I will probably just homeschool them, you know, if that's the case, you know. So, you know, but we're healthy and you know, I have TACFIT, so that's kind of what I've been really doing with my students, because it's hard to do a jiu-jitsu, right, without a partner. So we've been doing TACFIT, and it's, you know, it helps you clean your movements and helps you, you know, ultimately get better at not just jiu-jitsu but at life. And so it's been working. But I miss jiu-jitsu, and we just had a fight club session right now because they're gonna have protests in a couple hours here in Burbank. We're located actually right down the street. And so we had Fight Club session of jiu-jitsu training. I got to train. I think I got a little black eye today. I'm looking at myself here.
That's what I've been telling my students is that the first week when we all come back like full blown, everybody's going to go 100%. And the second week, nobody's going to be at academy because everybody's going to be with mat burns, recovering, hurt neck and everything.
Yeah, so we got together. Yeah, we got together and you know, just kind of gearing up, you know, just in case, you know, can't have somebody come in and break our windows, you know, we're not going to accept that, you know, so I'm going to go home and you know, get my gun, and we're going to be ready, you know. One of my boxing trainer, he has a gym on Melrose, and that whole area got decimated, right? It got burnt and robbed and looted, but his place didn't get messed with, you know. He stood there with his you know, with his fighters and his staff, you know, and he trains like Manny Pacquiao, and he's this big Australian guy, but they protected the place. Nobody stepped, you know, so we're going to do the same, you know.
Well, good. Be safe.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm telling everybody.
Yeah.
You know, we said we're outside the city, but, you know, a lot of goofiness was going on around here yesterday as well. And we've got a curfew, and all the stores are closing up as we speak, supposedly.
Yeah.
So we're just going to try, you know, just keeping it safe as we can. So
Yeah.
when we're getting started here, you know, we definitely want to talk about all that TACFIT. There's something that I found super interesting, but I was hoping we could start way back in the 90s there. And, you know, I think for me growing up, always watching martial arts movies, and then, you know, I did some taekwondo and did some kung fu and stuff, and everybody always has that goofy fantasy of like going to Mecca, right? And training wherever your discipline is from, and you're one of those few guys that actually did it. And I just want to know, like, how'd you make that decision, what the process was like, all that stuff?
Yeah, great question. You know, so when I was 18, I started doing jiu-jitsu in New Mexico. I was in Santa Fe, New Mexico. One of my best friends was Amal Easton, and he was like an older brother. Like he's like an older brother to me. I was 18. He was about 24, 25, and he moved down to Brazil first. But what I did was he told me about a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and I read it, and I took it to heart, and I wrote down my goals, and I wrote down what I wanted, and I did all the things that it asked me to do, and I really did it. And so all roads led to going to the source, and that meant going to Brazil, because that was the place to learn the martial art, to be the best and all that. And so that's what I did, and I had a good job at the time working at a restaurant, and I was able to save money, and then just went all in.
What year was this?
First year I went down I think it was 96,
So this was right at the beginning.
Yeah, for sure.
Man, how was that? Because I mean, listen, I've been around the block for 20 years, but like I cannot imagine going to Brazil way back in the day when jiu-jitsu wasn't even as present here in Chicago, in US. I mean, UFC started in 93, right? So 97, that's just a handful of years later. How was that experience?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was I feel like a golden era in a way, right? Like anybody that did MMA, like the Murilo Bustamantes, just all the Morris Berries, like the guys that were fighting in the Pride, or the big MMA shows, right? They were like also competing in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu World Championships, right? And so it was really cool, really special time. And it was surreal, it was surreal because, living in the US, if you're a blue belt, right, it's like you're like a grandmaster black belt, but so to actually go to Brazil and see all these black belts, amazing, crazy world champion black belts, right, world class black belts, you're like, wow, it just like blows your mind, and you get to start to hang out with them and become friends with them, and it just rubs off on you, right? So I mean, it was definitely surreal, going to the beaches in Rio de Janeiro and just living the jiu-jitsu lifestyle, the what it's about, right? Living it at that time too, because it was definitely like a fight club in a way, right? Only the strong survive. Like now it's become like more professional and more accessible to everybody, which is good, but back then definitely like if you weren't tough, if you didn't like, it was like fight club, right?
Did you have did you know where you were going? Did you know which gym to go to? Like, was this set up, or did you just shoot it off the hip?
Yeah. So my older brother, Amal Easton, he went down there first. So this is a story. So I read the book, right? But then he went to Brazil for like, I think like 5 months or something. And then he came back and he started sharing with me all the stories and sharing pictures. And of course we started training in his garage every single day, and I just ate it up. And so we trained every single day, probably 7 days a week. I think so, and he just sharing me techniques, and he took me to a couple tournaments. And then basically I was like, I want to go down too, and that's how I decided to go down there. And so he had a house. It was, you've heard of Barra de Tijuca. It's one of the boroughs, right, of Rio. So you have like Copacabana, you have Ipanema, you have Leblon, you have and then Barra de Tijuca is like on the south zone with the beach, the nice areas, right? And so he had a house, or he had a, he access, or he had a room in the house, right? It was like an abandoned house on this island. And so Baja de Tijuca, it's like Baja, Mexico, right? It's like a strip of land, right? And then there's like a lagoon in the middle. And so the house was on one of these islands. So to get to that island, you have to take like a little ferry boat to the front. You have to pay the guy like 5 cents or 10 cents or something. He would take you to the front, and there was no access on land. So you had to actually have to go to the side, and there's like a little pier, and you'd have to paddle a boat, to get to the house. And it was gnarly, because, if you ever went out, like, you kind of sometimes like the sewage wasn't too good, and like you try to go out and look nice and try to look good for the girls and smell good to everybody. You would have that smell sometimes, you'd be in the club, it would go away, but I'm just saying you you would definitely have that on your mind, but we lived in this house, so we had this house, and I would paddle the boat every day, and sometimes people would steal that damn ore, so it'd be hard to get to the house. And it was an experience, man, of a lifetime. I've taken like my family by, I've taken some students by, you know, later years down the road. And who knows, who knows, maybe I'll, be able to go back one day again and years
So
later.
how long has it been since you went to Brazil? Was this
I
the
went
only
last,
time?
I think I went last year, because I've been going back for the TACFIT to support like the TACFIT community.
Oh, nice.
And I have a lot of really, really good friends there, still, because I lived in Belo Horizonte, which is like the third largest city. Belo Horizonte, they call it, There's Rio, São Paulo, and Belo Horizonte. And that's where Draculino, my professor's gym is at. And so that's where I live mainly. So I have like a lot of really, really close friends there still. So every chance I get, I go back. Actually, one of my really good friends is here right now, living with me from there. But I try to go as much as I can because it's good for my soul. It's good for me. So it's hard, right, with the
Go back
responsibilities and families and things like that.
Go back to the first day you stepped on the mat and the reason why I'm circling back to this, because today I think a lot of people who starting jiu-jitsu or even who've been doing jiu-jitsu, they, the understanding what Brazil was like or what jiu-jitsu in Brazil was like back then, it's very different. Or at least it's very different for what we see here in US.
Mm-hmm.
What was your first day you stepping on the mat? I can only imagine, but
I
go
think
through that.
Yeah. I think the first day in Brazil, I'll tell you my first day in Brazil. I remember I had so many, it was like speaking of the first day, it was kind of crazy. I remember like my mom picked me up from the airport. We went to the restaurant in like the center of Rio de Janeiro. And I looked at the menu and I was like, what is this? And we had a dictionary at those times before iPhones. And I looked up in the dictionary and it said like tongue, something like that. And I'm like, okay, I'm good, And then there's like this homeless guy like showering on the sink. It was just nasty, And I was like, okay, I'm not hungry. I'll skip this meal. That was the first experience, I guess, once getting out of the airport. And then going back to the place, Amal asked me to bring his bike back to the house, because we went to visit a friend of his. And then he's like, hey, can you bring the bike back to the house because it's starting to rain? And I remember I never paddled a boat, like that, It's like you have to push off, you have to get some momentum. And there was like it was a lagoon, right? And so the water gets pushed out to the ocean eventually, right? So when you drive into Barra de Tijuca, if you ever go, like the water's, it's going in and out. And so I didn't know how to push off. And so I didn't know how to paddle a boat. I was going in a circle. So I would paddle one side and I started going in a circle.
Yeah, just counterclockwise the whole time.
Yeah. And there's all these plants. And I'm like, oh my God. And so I started to get pushed out into the ocean. And I started to panic. And I was like, oh my God. So I ended up just being able to grab like whatever I could on the land and pull myself back into the original spot. And I was exhausted. Probably took me like an hour to get back to the original spot. And I was like, hey man, sorry, I couldn't take the bike. He had no experience. I thought I was going to die. Right. And I think that was still the first day, and then I think we trained maybe later that day finally. And then that night, the last thing, right, I get to bed, right out of bed, it was nice. There's gunshots, boom, 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 and it seemed like, I don't know, I thought they were like, I don't know, you've seen City of God, like just, taking people out, So I was like, what do I do? What do I do? So I hid under the bed, and I just stayed there, It's embarrassing, I had to say, but I was like, what do you do, right? What do you do? Like, there was no closet, where do you go? Like, you try to fight, you're going to get shot, right? So I hid under the bed, and then I stayed there, and then the mall and the other guy, the guy was taking care of that house. They come in and hey, Alberto, where you at? And I
they caught you?
What's that?
They caught you under there?
Oh yeah. I came out of the bed. Well, I don't know what was going on, right? It was totally like, it's crazy, right?
That's great.
And they laughed at me and stuff, and that was my first day. That was my first day in Brazil.
That's amazing. Were they accepting of you when you got on the mat?
So in Brazil, right, in Rio de Janeiro, not Brazil, but Rio de Janeiro, there's a lot of foreigners that would come in, and so I think they're kind of used to as far as like foreigners, but as far as like mentoring and getting really close, I think Amal had like some good relationships that he had established, but for me it was I don't know, I'd never really felt that click, with the people, with the just it was the who's who, right? Like of black belts. It was like Gracie Barra at that time was like the best, you know, it was like the best team in the world, right? They had like, I don't know, 6, 7 current black belt world champions at the time. So, um, so I never really felt like the click, you know, and then I met Draculino, and then I went to his gym later on, and I really felt the click. I really felt like part of the team. And at the time, there were only white belt and blue belts on the mat. And so, but I felt right. I felt connected to everybody, you know. Whereas in Gracie Barra at the headquarters, right, it was like I said, all these black belts. But I felt like the better fit was for me were the white belt and blue belts team, because I just felt connected with everybody. And that was Draculino's team with Gracie Barra and Bella Razanch, right? And ended up being one of the best teams, you know, as far as like one school. He had so many black belt world champions. I mean, you name them, you know, that came throughout there. Eric Vandelay, like you name them. Hamel Bahal, like Samuel Braga, like so many. Felipe Pena, right? All these guys kind of came out of that gym, you know. These are much later generations, right? So, yeah, I ended up being like the right fit for me and the right choice.
Now, how
Did you
long
know
were you
at
there?
that time? I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gary.
How long were you there that first time?
The first time that I went to Brazil,
Yeah.
I was there for 6 months.
Okay.
So I saved my money, and then I went for 6 months, and then I came back for the tournament, the World Championship tournament. So I went home for like another month, and then I came back for another 3 weeks. And then my mom was like, "Hey, listen, like she did an exchange program when she was younger in college and stuff. She's like, why don't you just save up your money, and if I can help you too, and like just stay there for, you know, like a year or something." And then I ended up staying there for like quite a few years, you know, I think about 3 years, you know.
Wow.
I just went all in until I felt like I was done, and you know, I had gone there for what I wanted, you know, and that was like to be one of the best, right?
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Thanks, Mom. Right.
Thanks, Wow. Did you know the magnitude of what was going on around you? Like as far as the names and who you were training with, and like, you know, I mean, Gracie Barra, one of the strongest teams at that time. Like, was that
Yeah, I
visible?
mean, for sure. Like I learned Portuguese, like it was before iPhones. It was before, you know, I didn't have a laptop. You know, it was me looking at Gracie magazine and like Tatami magazine, and looking up each word by word, and looking at the dictionary, trying to figure out what they were saying. And so I knew everybody that was the who's who, you know, the who's who, right, of jiu-jitsu. So I was very aware, and they were like superheroes to me. So to be on the mat with all these guys was definitely like, you know, mind-blowing, surreal, right? But that's where I was at, and I put myself there, like just from like reading that Think and Grow Rich book, and you know, knowing what I wanted to do.
So what got you back to
being
to
crazy
States?
enough to follow through, right?
Oh yeah,
That's the thing. It takes a while, right? I mean, and you know, everybody always, and it's something we always talk about here, is like that first day it's walking through the door is always the hardest. To walk through the airport is much bigger deal. So, I mean, that's incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a lot of days where I kind of was like, what am I doing here? Like doubting myself. Like, you know, I was in paradise. If you look out the window, you know, that lagoon, the island that I lived on, and it was true paradise. But I definitely was like, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? You know, looking back at all these years later, it was, yeah, what a adventure. And something that I'm grateful I did, that I followed through on my instincts, on my gut instincts, you know. Moving to Brazil, and then moving to train with Draculino, my professor Draculino, and doing what I did.
What was the one big thing that took away from this entire experience across all these years in Brazil? What was the most fundamental thing that you kind of stuck with you for, you know, I mean, decades later?
You know, something that's really affected me in my life, that I've transferred or carried over to everything that I've done, is when I first started competing, I lost. You know, I lost for probably about 3 years. You know, I set a goal to become one of the best in the world, and, you know, world champion, blah, 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 you know, and I lost. You know, I lost for about 3 years. And you know, it was white belt, blue belt. Well, before they didn't have white belt tournaments, you know. So I wasn't like, I didn't suck. I was tough, but all these guys, I would just lose the tournaments either first or second match, you know. And I put everything into, into this, so it was hard to deal with that, to swallow that as a young man, because I put everything into that. And so every time I lost, I felt like I was gonna die. Right. It felt like dying. Right. Anyway. And I just had to pick myself up and keep trying. Right. Keep trying. And people ask me too, right? Like, what are you most proud of, like accomplishment? And it's like that time period of just persevering, right? In those 3 years. And then when I finally won a tournament, I was one of the top blue belts, and I carried that all the way to black belt, but if I would have stopped, I wouldn't have known that, right? Even like one tournament before that I won. But I once I won, I carried that all the way to black belt.
Well, what made you push through this? Because one of the things that me personally as an instructor that I encounter all the time is jiu-jitsu is so unmeasurable. It's difficult to compare yourself to other people. It's difficult to compare yourself even to yourself, because time moves on and we evolve. Things change around us. And it's so easy to quit. It's undeniable fact. It's easy just to give up. What made you, even at that time, we talk about 90s, early 2000, right? What made you keep pushing despite the fact that the goal of the gold medal of winning these matches was not at the reach, and we can only manage so far.
Right.
We can't control that, right?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I don't know, there's a little voice in my head that said, just try again, try again, try again. And I think for sure, like, great family, but I think the group that was around me, for sure helped. So like Draculino, my professor, and just the team that I had around me. But I think for sure, like my family, like just, like my mom's dad, it was like he was blind, and he lost his eyesight when he was a teenager, became an attorney, he was in politics, did a lot of stuff for the community. So having like those kind of influences in my life, seeing those things, I think it's got to be a little bit genetic, right? Too, like it's kind of passed down to you. And so I don't know. I don't know. But I think definitely reading that book too, like the Think and Grow Rich, and writing down my goals, and really like adding emotion to it, and just every single day, like thinking about it, and just being in a point where there's no return, right? Like I sold everything I had, I moved to Brazil, and there was only one thing to do, right? And so being in that position of like, there's no retreat, right? I got to do this, or there is nothing else, so I'm going to sink or swim, right? And so just being in that position, I think gave me a certain power. And I think that's something that definitely helped me.
Yeah, I think you had everything to lose at that point, right? It's not like your gym is down the street and you're going to quit and go home and watch TV. You gave up everything,
Right.
So, yeah, and talking about the inspirational people in your life, I don't know if we could switch up a little bit here, but I did want to talk to you, and I know you want to talk about it too, is the TACFIT. And, you talked about that earlier, and, watching you do it and hearing your story was super inspiring to me. And I've already shared it with other people. And Thomas and I were talking earlier, and we wanted to know how you got involved with it initially, and then your progression through it to now, being a certified instructor with it.
Yeah. So I got involved with TACFIT. I got introduced to TACFIT because of my first UFC loss. My first jiu-jitsu coach, actually, that from Santa Fe, New Mexico, he was a Navy SEAL, and he's always been ahead of the game with things, that's why I was into jiu-jitsu before it was even popular, right? Before even the first UFC. And so he's like, man, you got to get with this guy named Scott Sonnen and let him do your strength and conditioning, because he saw my fight and I got tired. It was the fight versus Roger Huerta. So I trusted him. I listened to him. And so I was like, okay. And so he set it up, and then Scott knew who I was because he was a grappler. And so that's how we got connected initially. And then he did this training protocol with me, and he wrote a blog because he lived in Washington State. And at that time I already had moved from New Mexico to Los Angeles. And so he had some of his trainers train me and help me. And I started this, like, I don't know, like this, I wasn't really ready for it at the time because it was so different, like all these different movements and And like, who is this guy? You know, like, how come nobody else ever showed me these things? I had like the top trainers and stuff, you know. I was blessed to have like those kinds of guys around me, but and then nobody had ever showed me like these things, you know. And one of the things that really stuck with me when I met with them was I got thrown on my head, and you know, I was in a lot of pain. You know, I couldn't move my neck. You know, usually you take like pain pills and you give it like 4 to 6 weeks, right? And then, you know, it kind of heals, but it never really fully heals. And so he showed me like a movement, you know, to do with my neck every time I would have pain, and I was able to heal myself within like a week, you know. And it's like that one thing that I never stopped thinking about it that really affected me, that I was like, man, this is like legit. Like, I want to do more of it. I want to learn more, you know. But there was never any really, there's never like TACFIT academies or TACFIT gyms around. And so that's something that, like, but I never forgot, you know, and it's something that I always wanted to pursue. And it only took me 10 years, you know, and, you know, but, you know, and the MS thing was really like a humbling thing for me, because I started feeling numbness in my arms, my legs, and I had a hard time like kind of walking, and it just got so stiff, everything hurt, you know, and putting my seatbelt on and things like that. And my subconscious kind of like remembered Scott Sonnen, and for some reason, you know, took me to his certification. Well, he invited me. He was always very, very good with me, you know, because he respected my grappling abilities, and he was a grappler himself, you know, high level. Like, man, his leg locking systems that he has, like, mastering the saddle, it's crazy. It's like John Danaher, all these, like, that's all these guys copied him, you know. They've given him some shout outs. Yeah. What's that?
That's a scary stuff. Those guys are
Yeah,
scary.
no, he's like super high level, super smart, you know, just so advanced, so beyond advanced, you know, just another planet in a way. Just, he's so technical. What's his name? The Wolverine from he used to be John Danaher. What's his name? Eddie Cummings, right?
Eddie Cummings.
He gave him a shout out and stuff, you know. But they, you know, all his like a lot of the leg lock stuff, you know.
Before we talk about the MS and that part of your life, which is a fascinating story for me personally, and I know Gary shares the same thing. For those who don't know what TACFIT is, can you define it in 1 or 2 sentences? What is it, and why is it different than all the other fitness programs or systems that are out there?
So it was called like the world's smartest workout by Men's Health magazine. And it really is like, it's all the right things that you need to do for you to be your best, you know. Like, you know, hormones, right? How we feel, our nervous system, right? How we function, our ability to move and just have energy, right, throughout the day. Of course, like our immune system, inflammation, right? And so moving in the right intensity, just everything is so precise. It's just so precise. So you can scale everything. So you can be training in the same room with an Olympic athlete that you can with somebody like couch potato, you know? And so it just teaches you how to teach, teaches you how to learn, because Scott Sonnen had these learning disabilities. I'm saying more than a sentence, you know, but if you have world's smartest workout, connecting your breath, the structure of your body and your movement makes all the magic happen.
It sounds very similar to jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it is.
From a concept perspective.
Basically jiu-jitsu with yourself, right? And so in this pandemic, it was the perfect thing to do. And it's pretty cool now because I have all these like TACFIT students that are gonna like, once you feel it, once you start to feel it, it's like jiu-jitsu, you kind of become addicted to that feeling, because you start to work better. You used to have pains, you don't have pains anymore, and you start, all of a sudden you have all this more energy, your thoughts are better, your brain starts working better, and it makes you smarter, you know. And Scott breaks down all the science and how it's crazy when you start going down the path, and just even the levels of breathing, you know. But my first introduction to him was the UFC loss. He's like, yeah, you're over breathing. I'm like, what? I didn't breathe enough. And so you open my mind up to like, you know, there's different types of breathing, right? Yeah. And you know, just the different levels of just knowledge, right? And
yeah,
so
I think the best piece of jiu-jitsu advice I ever got was somebody, black belt, put their hand on my chest and said, what are you doing? You've been here before. Just breathe, you know. Yeah. And it was all about, and once I was able to do that, I mean, Thomas knows I still get destroyed and smashed all the time, but I'm breathing through it, you know, and I'm feeling better throughout the whole round, you know. So, and what you're saying about the pain, I've got a buddy. I was just over at his place, and Thomas was doing on Facebook just some morning stretches, right? Trying to keep everybody engaged, his students. And my buddy was interested, and the super simple stuff, and he couldn't do it. And what I told him was, you got to just keep doing it.
That's
Move
it.
as much as you can, and it sounds, obviously it's a much higher level, but to me it sounds.
He has MS.
No,
Okay,
he's got some back issues, and I'm
sure.
gonna say
That's it.
it's mostly sedentary, right? He's not,
Right.
and he just he needs to move. I was like that too. If I want to come to jujitsu, I don't know how much I'd be weighing right now.
Yeah.
I don't know how hard it would be for me
Yeah.
to put my pants on,
Right.
and you just got to get going.
Yeah. If you don't move it, you lose it, right? And
Yeah, for sure.
So
Like anything
important.
else.
Like we have a brain to move, right? Partly survival and to move. And so if we don't move, we start dying, right? And so instead of living our best life, we're crashing and burning.
A decline.
So important to move. Yeah. And that's one of the great things about jiu-jitsu, right? Is you move in all different directions. It's always new. There's never the same role. Friendships, like so many benefits all across the board from a, neuro application or neuroscience approach, right? So yeah, but I feel like it needs the TACFIT component too, to really understand deeper the stuff, right? So you can really live, or not live, but train you to your best ability every decade of your life, so you die, right? I think that's having that quality of life, right? Because I know a lot of jiu-jitsu athletes, competitors, they become, even the 30s, and they're like walking with walkers and, canes, and it's real, and all these injuries. And it doesn't have to be like that if you have just some basic knowledge on your body, right? And TACFIT teaches you that.
Well, yeah.
So why did it take you
Thomas.
10 years to really get into it?
I'm sorry?
Why did it take 10 years for you to really
It was just
get
so
into
beyond my comprehension, and that there was nobody to teach me. Actually, I tried to go on the website, and the website was kind of weird, and I knew Scott Sonnen was like legit, so legit, and everything he showed me, but I just didn't know if his trainers or whoever was teaching, if they were legit, and so that's why it took me so long. But once I got a second chance, once I went to that cert, I went all in. I went to every single workshop, every single certification around the world, and I started changing. I broke my wrist. I started to dream. I hadn't dreamt for 10 years. I had all these issues, internally. And like I told you, I had a hard time walking. I couldn't put my seatbelt in my car. I couldn't put the seatbelt. I couldn't twist, And the reality was like everything hurt to move, So what happens when that happens? Like you want to just do nothing and not move, right? You want to just stay in bed, right? And do nothing. And so, people didn't know that at the time about me, because I was like the professor and the black belt, but that was the reality. I was in a lot of pain, and I had to take like ibuprofen every single day and try to drink a bunch of caffeine, but it was never enough, just things weren't working, And until I started doing TACFIT, I started taking ibuprofen. I probably had taken ibuprofen for like 15 years, almost every single day, to be honest, because my wife was reminding me, because just like pain, and just, you keep pushing. And that's how I kind of dealt with it, but I stopped taking it after my first TACFIT cert, and I started to move my body the correct ways.
Yeah. So one of the things, I think what makes your story so interesting is the variety of the places in life as you go through them. And what I mean by that, there's this Brazil component, which is so fascinating from very beginning, you're early on, right? And then you're a huge inspiration to young people. And then sometime in 2000s, this MS comes in.
Mm-hmm.
Walk us through this, because I think often people don't comprehend what MS is and really what impact could have on your life, and the adjustments that you have to make. And having this conversation with you right now, it's quite amazing, the transformation that you've made over the years. And I know, obviously TACFIT is a big part of all this, but before we get to that part, what was the beginning? How all this started? How did you find out?
So every 5 years in California and Nevada, they make you do a brain MRI. And so then they, a couple days before my next fight, they're like, hey, we need to have you come in to the doctor's office. And that's never a good sign, right? Like, I've never been called to the doctor's office, an extra visit, right? And so they sat me down and they showed me like the lesions that I had in my brain. And you have lesions in your brain. It looks like you have multiple sclerosis. We have to do these tests. So they did the tests and it came back positive, right? And then they gave me a stack of drug books and asked me what I wanted to take, and all the doctors and the nurses in the office, they treated me like I was going to die, basically, right? And you start going to YouTube and you start doing research and you look at people in wheelchairs and stuff, like a few months later or 6 months later, whatever, everybody's different, right? And then I asked the doctor, can I still do jiu-jitsu? And he said, yes. I was like, okay, cool. And so I registered for my first tournament and I did like a world tour. I traveled, I went around. I was like, what if I can't grapple in the month or 6 months or whatever, I was like, so my last rodeo, I put everything into it. So I did a world tour. And anyway, it took me to eventually to TACFIT. But what jiu-jitsu is really giving me that martial arts spirit of that perseverance, going back to my younger years of just persevering, And I learned that on the mats, on the mats of my professor, Draculino, in Belo Horizonte in Brazil, just put everything into it. And it really hardwired me for this, like MS, it's like the fight of my life, right? And I had the mindset from martial arts, from jiu-jitsu, combined with the right things of TACFIT. And that was the magic combination. Like, man, not only am I okay? Like, I'm living my best life. I'm putting in 18, 19 hour work days, I get up at 3, 4 in the morning to help TACFIT do work, to get things done. Like, man, I've never been so energetic. I've never done so much in my life. Never been this productive. So instead of being like, oh, this is it, or it's downhill from here, like, man, I'm just getting warmed up,
Yeah, that's amazing.
That sounds crazy to me. Gary, what do you
It's like
think?
it's like that movie Limitless, when he takes that pill. That's how I feel. That's how I feel. And it's all just from moving precisely and accurately. It sounds like so like, oh, just moving. No, but it's like he's put so much thought into it. It's all the right stuff for you to live your best life. I said that and it's like, oh yeah, sure. World's smartest workout. Sure. Yeah. Breath, structure, movement, but really it's so precise. And if you're really like kind of surrendered, just do it, that's why like this pandemic and the people having to do it and every day or, pretty consistently, you start to feel it like right away. You're like, oh man, this is like good for me. I'm feeling like all of a sudden I'm feeling better. And you would never do it, right? You would never actually do it unless these kinds of things happen, right?
Yeah. They got pulled off the mat. So now they're looking for something else. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a martial art with yourself. That's how I look at it, right? And the fight is the keeping the technique, right? Your breath, structure, movement, your heart rate, 60 to 80% your heart rate max, it's just so precise. It's kind of crazy. And it's a lot of things to kind of process, that's why I try to say as less as I can, right? And just have you just do it, because that's the best way to learn. Like jiu-jitsu.
Like jiu-jitsu. Just jump in.
Just do it.
You gotta. For me, I have a long family history with MD, and we talked about it. And what I think, and I want people to really focus on, is the memories of my aunts and uncles and my grandfather aren't good. Because,
did you say MD?
Yeah, MD. Yeah.
What's MD?
Myotonic dystrophy. So it's basically the connections are lost, right? It's muscle waste. Outwardly, it kind of looks similar to MS, but it's completely different. But they went through this once they were diagnosed. They sat at home.
Right. Exactly.
And I watched my earliest memories of my grandfather are in a wheelchair already, but telling stories, telling me to come over, talking to me, and then rapidly in a wench getting out of that wheelchair. And it was similar for my aunts and uncles too. And luckily it seems, at least for our family, it has stopped. We're lucky and fortunate. My brothers, sisters, all the cousins and stuff, but it's that sedentary and take pills, right? And I'm not a conspiracy guy in any way. I think that there's benefits, for medications, and I don't think that's the first
Can
thing
be.
that yeah. But you know, I also remember my first physical as an adult, like living out on my own, away from my parents and stuff. I was super nervous when I walked into the doctor's office, had my blood pressure checked, and it was high, and he wanted to give me medication.
Right.
And at the end of the office visit, I said, "Can you take it again?" You know, just because I calmed down so
Right.
much,
Right.
and it was normal. And had I taken those pills, who knows? You know, who knows? So I mean, it
It's a
is
slippery
amazing.
slope, right? Once you get on those things, you kind of get addicted to them. You know, what's funny too is when I was 18, also, like, I wanted to be a Navy SEAL because that first jiu-jitsu coach of mine was a Navy SEAL. And so he would tell me stories. Oh, that's cool. My dad was a Green Beret, like in Vietnam. And so I always kind of, I guess, admired that in a way. And so I was like, I want to be a Navy SEAL. And then I went to the Navy. It was breaking my mom's heart, but I went anyway. And what's funny is they took my heart rate, or the blood pressure, and it was high. Again, I think it was because I was nervous. And so they waited like about whatever, 3-4 months. And instead of going into the Navy, Amal, my friend, moved back from Brazil, and I started training in his garage every single day. And because of that, I decided, is like, they called me back, actually, allow me to come into the Navy. And it was good. I went the jiu-jitsu route instead of that. So sorry, I went on a tangent, but it's just like the blood pressure thing, you know. But for sure, like the health, you know, it's like, and you know, like the drugs and stuff, like it's so easy to just throw like drugs, right, and those kinds of things into the mix, you know. But is it the best option? Like, maybe sometimes, right? But I think very small percentage, you know. Most of the time it's like your mindset and movement and those kinds of things can really heal things, right? And it's you know, it's not good, you know. It's definitely not good, you know, because it's like the easy way. And you know, like the healthcare, like it's like a business, right? And so big pharma and you know, like drugs and surgery, right, is like the way to make money. And so that's not really in people's best interest most of the time. The best things are movements like jiu-jitsu, like a TACFIT, you know, all these things where you move your body, you move your, you know, can I curse? Like, you move your shit, you know, and you stay healthy, man. You live your best life, you know, not sit on your ass. And you know, I mean, that messes with your mind too, right? I mean, we have a lot of people haven't trained jiu-jitsu, right? And what does that do to their mental health? You know, even people that are healthy, you know, you're like, they're losing their stuff, you know, they're not happy. And what's the solution? To take antidepressant drugs that you get addicted to, right?
Right.
That's crazy, right?
But even beyond that, there are so many examples, at least for myself as an instructor, and I'm sure you can find a similar on your side in your experience. But there's so many people I've met with depression and
Right,
anxiety and
right,
PTSD and all
right,
other conditions that they start jujitsu, maybe not even for that reason, but they start jujitsu and all the other things are kind of solved on their own. And it's not that jujitsu has some magical powers, but truly it puts you in a state of, it's like a language of its own. You have to
right,
comprehend it, understand it, troubleshoot it, and continue evolving with it. and
right.
and, and I think that a lot of that takes away of the problems and obstacles of life that we have. Have you found that similar cases with your students?
Oh, of course, 100%. You know, well, one, you're moving, right, and two, I mean, like I said, like the social aspect, you know, like
Mhm.
the social distancing kind of situation, right? But connecting with other humans, right? Like, when we can live in a city with millions of people, but you can be alone, right? You can be alone because you're not really connected to others, you know. But who would have thought that, you know, just trying to choking somebody or you trying to choke them, like, really connects you and builds that trust of human connection, right? And there's like, you're like your brothers, and like, I mean, you know, people that you trained with, like, I'm still friends with them 20, 25 years later, right?
Yeah.
Like, all my friends, really, my old friends, are from jiu-jitsu, you know, and they're still close. Like, we can just meet up and it's like nothing happened, you know, all these years didn't pass by. So I think for sure, like, on so many different levels, right? So many different levels. It's so important, you know. That's why it's so interesting, like that, you know, liquor stores and all these, like, these other things are open, right? But like jiu-jitsu and, you know, jiu-jitsu gyms aren't essential, or martial arts and all these like gyms, right? Gyms aren't essential. Like they're like the last thing to open up here in LA. You know, it's just crazy. Crazy situation. It's I mean, like, man, in Switzerland, I read a Bloomberg article. Brothels, prostitution's legal, but wrestling and judo is still illegal. Come on, who's making these rules? Like they made that you can sit down now again. I never appreciated like sitting down in a chair in a food place, in a restaurant, until like now. I never really like appreciated how amazing it is, but I was able to sit down again Saturday and Friday. They made it, okay again to sit down and having chairs in a food place. And
that happened here Friday as well, and then everything went to
okay.
shit. Right, everything fell apart late Friday night and Saturday. So
right?
everybody's back at home again.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, so standing up, you have to put your mask on, but when you sit down, you can take your mask off, and I don't know, just like a lot of crazy rules, right? It's almost like just to kind of control things in a way. But we'll see. The truth will hopefully come out, with all the social medias and the social things that we have now, technologies, So I mean, just the fact the looting and all that, the fact that things are staged, with the not staged, but like guys have bricks, and like the bricks are put there, and like not one person, but like, man, around the country,
right? Yeah.
And with spray cans, like it's like something like a movie set, like how it's perfectly burnt, and then they have like a dye pigs, like come on, it's like staged. It's crazy.
And I also saw something today, and I'm trying to avoid it just because it just, I think it messes with your mind.
Yeah.
But one of the things I did see was two young white girls.
That they have bricks everywhere. Like, I can't believe that,
But it was two young white girls painting Black Lives Matter on a building. And there's a black girl like screaming at them, "Stop it. What are you doing? They're going to blame me for this." And who knows if they're organized or they're just dumb kids, or, what it is. But it is, there's a lot going on, and I think it's going to be a while before we shift.
Somebody's doing it. Somebody's doing it. So somebody's organizing it, right? We don't know. I don't know who is. But like, it seemed like Trump called them out, right? What's that group? Antifa. But it's organized by somebody. It's being funded by somebody, to create chaos and anarchy. It's so crazy, man. I can't believe like all these businesses have been closed. We've been closed, right? After all these months, no income or whatever. And then on top of that, this thing happens, right? And like these businesses are like looted and destroyed. Like, oh my God. Like, I do not feel protected by the government. I do not feel protected at all. I'm going to go home. I'm going to get my gun because they're having a protest like down the street at the police station, which is like maybe 5-6 blocks away. So we're going to come with the guys. We had our, like I said, like our Fight Club training, and man, defend this place,
Well, fingers crossed that nothing blows up by you.
Yeah.
I'd hate to have it happen.
For anybody to get hurt, because it's gonna go down. For them.
Silence. Nobody wants to say anything.
Let's switch these gears up. We're going to work back to what we're. So, yeah.
Hey, so you're doing something new. Switching up into your new project. Talk about your brand new project, because I saw a couple of weeks ago you've been promoting it, and I find it interesting. Just roll it out. What's your new project?
The Grapples Toolbox.
Yep.
Yeah. So it came out for the TACFIT, through the TACFIT. I came out with a product called Grapples Toolbox 101. And so I just it's very like a short series, but it's kind of an introduction to the system from my point of view of the things that I think that can really benefit jiu-jitsu athletes. And so a big game changer has been these like body flows, and these movements. And like I said, it's the quality of movement. It's not just doing the movement, but it's like really the quality of the movement. So I try to break down like the techniques, the movements, themselves. And I try to talk about the breath, so it's like an introduction, right? And then I build flows, and so you can use it for a warm up. You can use it for cool downs. You can use it before, a tournament, and it's just building that body awareness, right? For you to be able to stay healthy.
So
right?
this
'Cause
is
we're all-
like a combination of TACFIT and Jiu-Jitsu combined, or TACFIT for Jiu-Jitsu
yeah,
students?
I'm definitely biased, right, for jiu-jitsu. Like everybody has different intentions, but I'm always thinking about jiu-jitsu. So yeah, sorry about going on a tangent on the thing. I'm just like, it's gonna be in a couple hours, so I'm like, I'm worked up,
You're wired up. He's like, who
I'm
cares to
worked
talk
up.
about this? I want to.
Yeah, I'm worked up. Whereas I was meeting with the guys
Just
downstairs to get ready.
stand outside with one of those TACFIT clubs.
Maybe. Hey,
Nobody's
listen.
gonna
Maybe
bother
we
you.
should take a
I,
pause.
I,
Here's an idea. We should take a pause and we should resume this conversation in 4 hours
right.
after things unfold.
Hopefully
I
nothing
think.
happens. Hopefully nothing. I don't want any trouble. I don't want any trouble. I don't want any problem.
We all just.
But if like if some idiot comes and tries to like destroy like stuff like our little things that we have, like, come on, man, it's like on top of like being closed, right, all these months, have
Right.
to deal with that. So anyway, we're talking about the Grapples Toolbox 101. And so yeah, from my perspective, I'm always thinking about jiu-jitsu. And so things that I think will help jiu-jitsu athletes, be better, learn better, move better, then that you can do right away. And I try to keep it as simple as I can, because you can definitely go down the rabbit hole with the TACFIT system. And too much information, you get lost, right? But I try to break it down as simple as I can, and just do it, and yeah, it should help you, help you.
So how is this available? I mean, how is this?
You can
How
go
is
to
this? 'Cause
TACFIT.com. Like, so TACFIT's tactical fitness. So TACFIT, TACFIT.com. And you can find it there. It's on the front page right now, because we just released it last week. And of course our tool is that club bell. It's like a bat, right?
Mhm.
Joey Diaz always calls it like a bat. The bats are swinging the bats, but it's a club bell. And I mean, we're designed to hold like those clubs, right? It's a steel, like it's a weighted club, right? So it's really, really good, to really, connect your whole body, right? And for real strength and mobility, because we only need to be like, I think about jiu-jitsu, right? Obviously, always, but we only need to be so strong, but we also need to be mobile, right? And so it's always that balance, right, of mobility and strength. And like the club bells and all the body movements, it really prepares you for jiu-jitsu and allows you to stay healthy in jiu-jitsu as well.
Can you use other things besides that? The equipment specific that you have in the videos, or is it
Yeah.
replaceable with
So,
something else? Because some of these equipment might not be available for everybody, right?
Right. So you can buy club bells on TACFIT. I think we're sold out because the pandemic, it went crazy. But we use
No
kettlebell.
way.
Yeah, right. Everybody's
Try getting a kettlebell anywhere in this country.
Yeah, so we're gonna have kettlebells too, but we use kettlebells, club bells, parallettes. We use big Bulgarian bags, like sandbags. We use like a lot of different tools. And again, it always goes back to the original, breath, structure, movement. Working smart, right? Because harder isn't harder. Just better is better, right? It doesn't sound about hard. It's like less is more, actually, right? Less is more. And as when you really start to go into it, and people are learning now, right? Back in my day, it was like just like train hard. We never talked about recovery. We never talked about these things, but we're getting smarter now. So I'm really proud and grateful that for my MS, but also I can help other jiu-jitsu athletes, stay healthy and be able to continue training for the rest of their lives. Like one of my best friends here, he's from Belarus. He's like a 4th degree black belt as well, Draculino black belt, and his lower back, he had to stop training. He was like one of the top guys when he gets Marcel Garcia, tapped out Jacare De Souza, and the guy in the UFC, top guy. He's a musician, he plays music, but obviously he loves jiu-jitsu and he's very, very good. But he couldn't train anymore because his lower back he had a hard time walking the week after training, so he kind of just he was in pain every time he would train. So he kind of had to stop training. And so I started showing him on my trips to Brazil, like some of these things, these TACFIT things and some of the flows and all these things. And he started doing it, and he started to feel better. And now he's training, he's competing again, winning tournaments, and like he's able to do it now again because of that. And so that makes me happy, and that's what I want for all my jiu-jitsu friends, and my students, everywhere.
Do you incorporate TACFIT into your jiu-jitsu programs, or is it you doing separate? How does that look in your academy particularly?
So I have separate TACFIT classes, but I, of course, I have an influence in the jiu-jitsu, right? So I tell people about it. And then at the beginning it was very different, right? But I believed in it so much, and I would tell them, and then they would try it out. And then, like I said, after, I think the magic number is like 2 weeks, they start to feel it, and once they start to feel it, like they've been training for years now, and it's really something special. And so I have it separate, but I also incorporate it into like the things that we do. Like we do good cool warm-ups, smart warm-ups, and we do some cool down. We do cool downs every time, to turn on the parasympathetic nervous system, like the relaxing the recovery nervous system, right? So we do the fight or flight. So our sympathetic nervous system is very high, right? So we want to turn on the other nervous system, the recovery one. So like stretching, right? And turning off those muscles, right? And then starting the recovery process. So we do those things, even at night, right? If training, like, people have a hard time sleeping if they train at night. So all these different little things, like these little tweaks, really help allow you to train more, train better, and live better because of it. Isn't that what we want?
That's so interesting, because you mentioned some of those things. I can't sleep after a long night of training, and or I'm aching. And these are very common components that you hear from students, throughout jiu-jitsu journey. These are very common. At least I think. Gary, what do you think? I mean, we hear this all the time, right?
Yeah, I think, for me, I started when I was 46, right? So I haven't been at it that long.
He's 99 right now.
Right, yeah. So, but, one of the main reasons why I came in was because I was having a hard time, right? And I could have if I would have fell into a school where it was like, go hard or go home, I probably would have quit, right? But I came here, I had great training partners, people that told me what to do before and after class, and how to train smarter. Don't come, hey, you're an older guy, train with this person who's been around the block for a while, not some 22-year-old kid who's going to try and kill me. And I think that, we said it earlier, early on today, we said that it's, don't be sedentary, get moving, and I think that, what I saw in the TACFIT video that I've seen you do, it's super impressive, just because it keeps you loose, right? You're using your brain, you're using your body, you're using your breath, and you're going to for me, anytime I'm doing any of the smart stuff that I'm supposed to be doing, you kind of take that home with you at night, right?
That's it.
And those last couple hours of the day are going to be way better than they would be without it.
Yeah, it's all the right stuff. Why wouldn't you do it, right? There's like we created those one-on-one series, for TACFIT. It's like an introduction because I have a lot of black belt friends and just people that I recommend, of course, TACFIT to. And it's like, if you get one of the major programs, it's like, it's kind of too much information. So these one-on-ones are like, it's nice because you can it's pretty easy to follow, And so there's like an into flow one, and any kind of nick or any kind of impingement you have, like you learn how to move every joint in your body, like pretty precisely, And so it's called into flow. And there's different rings, different systems inside the system, right? But it's all the right stuff that everybody needs to do to stay healthy, feel the best, and do their best.
Before we wrap up, there's as you listen to your story, there's a huge change of, journey from the beginning to the very end. Let's wrap this up with a very simple question. The difference between the way how you train today and how it was the first time when you went to Brazil. Lay it out. What's the difference?
One thing I've learned, and like the Soviet era, right? Training, like it's like the biggest case study in mankind of how to train, right? And, for example, like if you're a trainer here in the US, like those logs belong to you. But if you're a trainer in the Soviet Union time, right, those logs belong to the government. And so it's the biggest case study in the history of mankind. And so they figured some things out. That's why a lot of those the tests still stand today, 60 years later. And less is more is the bottom line. Less is more. And it's hard to wrap your head around it, And I think there's definitely a power in overtraining and overdoing it and pushing it. There's definitely a power in that. But that's where coaches come in, right? And that's where
define this a little more, because I have a feeling some people might interpret this as, does this mean that I have to come in once a week to jiu-jitsu or once a month to jiu-jitsu, and then I learn more than the guys who are there every day?
Right. So I tend to overtrain. That's why I say less is more. I think creating, like, for example, Scott has a 4-day wave, and so you wave your training. Like one day it's like low intensity, middle intensity, no intensity, and so you're always waving your training. If you train hard every single day, like you start to break down, right? And like I said, there's a power in that, but really the longer you can train consistently, right, the better you're going to get, so it's about finding that balance, and so that's what I say, like less is more. Like maybe one day you train hard, but the next day maybe you just drill, right, or just flow roll, or maybe one day you just do some technique, do some TACFIT stuff, and then do some techniques. You're always like evolving, moving the needle in your jiu-jitsu training, right? But training hard every single day like we used to, it's not the best way, and if you talk to a lot of the world-class competitors today, like they say the same thing.
Well,
It's
what's the cliche? Train smarter, not harder, right? I've heard that quite a bit, and especially for as you get older.
Yeah, that's it. Train smarter, not harder. But I always like to say, I guess, train hard to train smart. Train hard to train smart. Work hard to work smart, right? And so I think that's where the magic happens. That's where that allows you to be your best, right? If you're going to be any kind of world class guy, you gotta be 100%. You gotta be 1,000% focused. Everything's got to revolve around that. And for you to stay consistent, where you can become, because it takes years and years and years, you got to balance your training, right? You got to balance your training. And so always keeping that in mind, the world-class athletes, they kind of figure that out, right? Because they have the goal and things just kind of appear. But if you look at the numbers, you look at the data, right? And you look and you talk to a lot of the guys, like that's the best way to train, Some people are stubborn like me, and I always tended to overtrain, and that's some people's ways, right? But really, less is more. Going back to that, less is more. You should train your butt off, but less is more.
I'm excited to actually check this out, Gary. What do you think?
Well, I know I got to start doing something the longer we're closed, right? The older I feel, those 99 years are catching up to me real quick.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But it's more seriously, yeah. I mean, I've got neck issues. I've got lower back issues, right? From doing dumb stuff when I was younger. And I got to keep moving, or, the bad stuff's going to happen.
You can change it to your last breath, You can change it to your last breath. You can use that mindset of martial arts to do the right things, and you can change it, Move that spine, move that neck, Maybe you're doing a certain movement too much, right? So pull yourself the other way to open up space, to create, release the tension, it's releasing the tension. And so, like I said, going back, I feel like I'm a damn sales guy for TACFIT, but I am, because it's done so much for my life, so I can't help but talk about it. But it's building that awareness, right? So like overdoing it, like doing a certain thing over and over and over, like, okay, like I'm going to understand, okay, I need to do this stretch after training because my neck is getting really tight. So it's not, oh, I have my neck, and you go to the doctor and they want to give you some pain pills, or they want to do surgery. Hey, we got to cut you, like I always tell the story. One story, one of my black was like, oh, I went to the doctor. He said I have to get shoulder surgery. And so I'm like, let me see. And I have him do like some stretches to see, and I see, oh, your lats are really tight, like we're pulling all the time, right? So of course your back and your lats are going to be very good. He was so tight. I was like, man, stretch out your lats every day. I showed him the stretches, every day this week, and then let me know how you feel. And he's like, man, my shoulder, after a week, he's like, my shoulder doesn't hurt anymore. And guess what? No shoulder surgery, but he could have gotten shoulder surgery once he went to the doctor,
It is amazing how these things work out.
You can heal yourself, you can heal yourself. Of course, if your bone's sticking out of your arm, you probably want to get it, get the surgery and get it, put the screws and stuff in there, But most of the time, that's not the case, right? And I think if you keep your mind open and to the possibilities of healing yourself, and you're willing to do the work, right? And it's the attitude at the end of the day, right? It's your attitude. Hey, can I heal myself? Do I want to heal myself? And you can.
I think that's the key right now. What you just mentioned is the attitude, is the outlook on life, is how you carry yourself. My dad used to tell me there's two types of people. There are victims, and the people who will really go above and beyond to fix their problems. Whether you agree with that philosophy or not, there is something behind it. You can accept what you have, or you can continue driving to make it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And obviously there are components out of our control. And you can only but there is a lot we can control it. That's us and our bodies, right? So I think that's something, that's a gold mine right there.
Yeah.
Alberto, where can people find you? Where's this TACFIT stuff? Where are you? How do we find you, man?
Instagram, at Alberto Crane, CRANE, Alberto CRANE. TACFIT at TACFIT, Instagram, TACFIT.com. Legacy Los Angeles is my gym in Legacy. It's in Burbank. We have 2 gyms here in the Los Angeles area. So if you're ever in the area, in Los Angeles area, our doors are always open to you. I guess once they do open up again officially. But yeah, I'm here every day doing jiu-jitsu and TACFIT, and everybody is always welcome.
Thank you. Well, if I'm out that way, I'm going to take you up on it for sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Alberto, great conversation, great story. Thank you for sharing all the information. Stay safe today.
Thank you.
No matter what happens, stay safe out there. Listen, anytime you're in Chicago area, stop by ROL Academy. We are here, and I'll make a point to swing by. I know you're a good friend of Adam Razovic. He's visited your academy several times. I got to make a point to stop by there as well. Gary, before we finish up,
we're gonna, if you had a good time, talk to us again, because there's a lot we didn't get to. So I appreciate your time, and hope to see you and talk to you again.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Alberto, take care. Thank you for listening to ROL Radio. Check out all future episodes on our website and all major podcast platforms. Take care.